Welcome to the Photoshop channel. My name is Erwin Marionneaux, and today I'm participating in the Creator Games. What are the Creator Games? It's a series where 4 artists are placed head to head to edit this image any way that they like using the features found in Adobe Photoshop. But the catch is, we only have an hour. I'm primarily a filmmaker and photographer, so looking at the image, I would probably only just do some color adjustments to get the image where I want, but we're in Adobe Photoshop, so let's have a bit of fun with it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is expand the background using Generative expand. So let's click on the crop tool and Generative expand, and let's do a lot of video work. So let's crop it to 16:9. All right, now that I've done that, let's hit generate and see what happens. All right, we got 3 options. This one, and this one. I think we're gonna go with the first one. I think the next thing we need to do is separate the cat and the dog from the background. To do that, I'm gonna click select and go down to subject to select the subject. It's pretty crazy how you can just select subject and it just magically knows that the cat and the dog is the subject of the picture. Now we're gonna go in and refine the selection by clicking select and mask. I don't need this mask to be like perfect because of what we're doing to the image, but I do want to refine the hair around the cat and the dog just to make it a little more clean. So now that I have the cat and the dog separated from the background, I'm going to separate them from each other. So I'm just going to select the cat roughly and separate them. And with the eraser tool, I'm going to erase some of the extraness that came with it. So now let's create a new layer, and I'm going to try to generate a city. So I'm typing in giant cityscape, and it gives me a couple of options. Based on what they gave me, I definitely am not leaning towards the realistic looking one. I want the one that looks dystopian, because why not? So now we can figure out how to position the cat and the dog within this city. The idea is to have the city kind of like covering the bottoms of each one so we can blend them in better. Since it's supposed to be like a giant cat and a giant dog running through the city, I guess the cat is the aggressor because look at it. So now let's create a mask and cut around the city to place them behind it. So I'm going to lower the opacity of them both. And I'm just going to use the pen tool to select around the buildings that intersect with their body. Alright, now that I got that selection done, I'm going to paint in on the mask, which reveals the city, and do the same for the cat. And there we go. Now I do want to incorporate something else from the original picture. So I guess this green piece of whatever this is that's sitting on, I try to incorporate that as like a cliff or something in the foreground. So let's select that and place it right on top of the image, scale it up, and I'm gonna go to filter and put a Gaussian blur on it because it's in the foreground, and that should be good. So let's start working on the color to blend these in with the background. So I'm gonna adjustment and color balance, and let's cool them off some and just try to match that bluish tint that the generated image has. It looks like it matches, but let's reduce the saturation a bit. So I'm gonna go to image, hue and saturation, reduce the saturation a little bit. All right, cool. So the green is throwing me off a little bit because I don't think in this environment you'll see much green. So let's go ahead and kill that grass. Let's do this in camera raw filter. I'm gonna use this selection tool right here, which will pick the color that I click on, and let's adjust it to this orangish dead looking grass color. Now that looks like it fits the vibe more. All right, so at this point, I think we're just working on trying to blend this in a bit more. Like I said, I only have an hour to do this, so obviously I'm not gonna be able to get it perfect, but we can do a better job than this. So I'm gonna add a curves layer, bring down the midtones a bit, add a mask to that so that I can go in and basically paint in where I want the effect to be. So we're trying to add some shadows in to help the cat and the dog seem a bit more realistic, with shadows from the buildings and based on where the light is coming from, which is the right. I think we can probably let's try to generate a helicopter. Put it like right here. Let's see, the third helicopter looks perfect. So that's fine, and let's blend the dead grass a bit more and give it that bluish tone like everything else in the picture. Once again, I'm using the camera raw filter here, just bringing the color temperature down, and that did the trick. I'm a bit curious if I expand it again like I did before. So let's use the crop tool and make sure it's on generative expand and hit generate, and let's see. Okay, I think this could work. It brings less attention to my blending issues, which I don't have time to fix. So let's go with one of these. I think I'm also going to try to add some sunlight just to counteract the blue, so it won't just be all one color tone. So I'm using the paintbrush to make a yellow dot, which I see I've chosen the textured one, which doesn't really matter because what we're going to do is we're going to add a blur. We're going to add a very strong blur on that dot, and then we're going to expand it just to the point where I can use the corner to highlight over a portion of the image. Let's see, reduce the opacity a bit and just move it around till it looks pretty good. All right, that looks good. And let's go into camera raw filter and I guess do some final tweaks with the contrast, shadows, increase the clarity a bit. Let's add a bit of grain to give the picture some texture. Make some primary adjustments for the colors. All right, right at about an hour, and I can live with that. So let's compare the before picture and the after picture. So without importing any additional images or anything like that, I was able to do this drastic of a difference in Photoshop. And I was able to do it all within an hour. If I had a bit more time, I definitely would blend the cat and the dog a bit better, and I would probably add, some smoke or some fire going on, and just a bit more chaos to explain why this cat and the dog are in the city and why they're huge. So my question is, what would you guys have done to this image if you were given an hour to do whatever you wanted in Photoshop? Be sure to check out what the other 3 artists did here on the Photoshop channel, as well as all of the other content that they have here to help you guys out on your creative journey. And I'll see you guys next time.